Hello, everybody. My guest today is Raj Aggarwal. He co-founded Localytics in 2009 and as CEO until 2017, creating the leading mobile engagement platform that is used by many of the world's top brands. Before Localytics, Raj spent 12 years building a variety of different technology companies. He was a management consultant focused on mobile with Bain and Company and Adventis. And then Raj worked alongside Steve Jobs at Apple to develop the business framework for the iPhone while he was at Adventis and led the formation of the multi-billion-dollar Disney mobile venture in Japan. Raj, are you ready to take us to the top?
Do it.
All right, very good. So tell us first, what does Localytics do and what's the business model? How do you make money?
Sure. So Localytics is a mobile engagement platform. There's two sort of major parts to it. There's the analytics part, where we're helping mobile apps collect data on their users. What are the behaviors? What's working? What's not? And then we take that data and we use it to deliver personalized and targeted messaging across a variety of mobile channels, including push notifications, in-app messages, as well as email and content personalization. So the way that we make money, it's a SaaS subscription business that's based on the volume of the app. So depending on how
you mean the app downloads?
Well, specifically, we base it on the number of monthly active users that you have. So basically, as an app grows, forget about downloads because we think that's a vanity metric. It's not a very helpful metric. But how often are you bringing users back to your app? How big is your audience? And based on how big your audience is, there's a subscription fee for different modules of the product. For example, the analytics, the push notification service, etc.
And in general, what's a customer paying you per month on average, would you say?
The average tends to be in that $50,000 to $100,000 range. So
ACV or monthly?
That's annual ACV.
Got it.
So we've our biggest customers are well over $1 million, and that's increased a lot over the past 5 or 6 years as we started probably more SMB mid-market and have really moved up market particularly over the past 3 or 4 years.
I want to talk more about that here in a second, but give us more of the history here. When did you launch the company?
So beginning of 2009, I left my job at Bain on August 31st, 2008.
That's a cushy salary to give up.
It was, and it felt like still the right thing to do based on the investor interest we had. But 15 days later, Lehman Brothers collapsed.
Yep.
And so, what went from hey, we can raise money easily went to almost 2 years of bootstrapping the company. But it was the best thing that could have happened to us because the companies that did raise money before then, all had to shoot off into the wrong direction, trying to grow fast. And most of them tried to become ad networks. For us, we were forced to work closely with our customers, figure out what they really wanted. And at that time, it was, deep insight about what was working within their mobile apps, how to grow that audience. And it was in 2012 that we expanded from being primarily analytics to adding this engagement layer so we could use that data to create these more engaging experiences with end users through all these new mobile communication channels.
Got it. And just to be clear, if I launch Nathan's app, it has 100,000 kind of monthly active users. User X logs on. You are basically going to tell me that user X clicked this button in the app, they watched a video in the app for 2 minutes, and then they exit on this part of the app experience versus collecting demo data on that user to then sell across some ad network.
That's exactly right. Now, In some cases, there will be demo data that helps us give you a better experience. So if we know something more about you, we might cater push notifications to you. As an example, customers include like ESPN and Weather Channel, and we'll use data like, your favorite sports team or your location to give you targeted messaging that you're going to actually want to receive and that's going to help you.
But just to be clear, you're not doing anything else with that demo data in terms of putting it into some big network.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, good. Fascinating. So 2009 was launch date. Obviously, Lehman collapsed shortly thereafter. You've grown the company. Now, have you bootstrapped or have you raised capital?
We've raised capital. So we raised a couple of angel rounds, 2010, 2011. Our first venture round was in 2012. Total, we've raised nearly $60 million in equity.
God, Raj, about a minute ago, I liked you so much more than I like you now. 60 million. What the hell do you do with 60 million bucks?
I'll tell you, there's pros and cons, obviously, of raising money. And For a lot of our early going, we wanted to maintain sort of optionality and stay lean, but this space did start to really take off, and particularly in 2015. A lot of money was going into this space, and to some extent we jumped onto that bandwagon and probably raised a little more than we should have.
Name a few though. Like, what were some other companies that raised a bunch in 2015?
Around that time, Mixpanel raised 65 million in a single round. Kahuna raised 45 million. Other companies like Urban Airship and Amplitude raised a lot of money around that time. So these are all companies in a similar space to us.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of like the race was on.
Yep.
And because of the amount of money that went into the space and the amount of money that went into sales and marketing, we oversaturated the space. And
Yep.
pretty much all of us had to do some level of sort of correction. I think we were early on that, and we've been able to take the business to cash flow break even, which we did in last year in 2017.
And you're still break even today?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, look, when someone's that break even, unless you had a crazy burn rate when you raised 60 million, you still have a lot of that cash sitting in the bank.
That's right. So, look, we spent more than we wanted for a period of time, but we corrected, what we were doing quickly enough and focused back in on customers. We were also, to the extent the piece I talked about where we sort of moved towards the enterprise. There was a time where we were hitting maybe too wide a part of the market. From sort of the mid-market into enterprise. And we had to get really focused in on what our core was, where we were able to see, huge growth within our existing customers, strong retention, as well as, good unit economics. And for us, that was really always in the enterprise.
In terms of economics today, what does your churn look like in terms of give me monthly logo and revenue if you have that?
Yeah, I don't have the specific numbers, but I would say that, what we're seeing like best in class retention with our enterprise, right? Frankly, with the SMB and mid-market, we didn't see that, but that's now a very, very small part of our revenue.
Got it. When you say let's just talk about your enterprise cohort. When you say best in class, I mean, are we talking sub 1% monthly logo churn and net negative revenue churn?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking high 80s into 90s.
Got it. Okay, fair enough. Walk me through the transition. So let's do it this way. What was your cheapest price point when you were kind of going very wide? How cheap could people get in at?
It was $99.
Okay.
So, that was per month. So you could get in at $1,200 per year. We had a free product that went up to 10,000 monthly active users. Now, the first paid tier was $99 a month. Once you got to about $10,000 a year, you were off of the self-service version of the product, and you had to move into the enterprise version of the product. And so it depended on the time frame, but usually between 100,000 monthly active users and 250,000 monthly active users. Since then, we've actually, sort of basically disbanded those lower tiers, so that the starting point today is about $10,000 a year. Okay,
so if you go back to when you had the most customers, even though your revenue is probably lower, like how large was your customer base at the peak before you started cutting down?
Probably about 1,100 or 1,200 paid customers and 6,000 to 7,000 total companies using the service, including free customers.
Okay, got it. And then what have you cut down to today? And my follow-up question is, how did you get people who were paying? How did you politely tell them you're not a good fit anymore?
First of all, a lot of it's about giving them a lot of time to make the transition if they're not able to or willing to sort of pay for the enterprise version of the service. So a lot of these things, I mean, we took up to 12 months to give them a really long window to make their decision. Obviously, you're going to give people that have been with you for some time some incentives to make it easier for them to upgrade and stay on an enterprise service, at least for a certain period of time. And so I think at the end of the day, it was just about treating them with respect, right? Giving them the ability to download their data and have a smooth transition if we were no longer the right fit for them, which in some cases we were. Some cases I would say though, what we did find is that we were revenue neutral in terms of the revenue we lost from those customers versus the
expansion.
Rated.
Yeah. And I want to hone in on that for a second. If X percent of your customers you deemed to not be a fit because they were smaller than what you wanted to serve, when you made this shift, what you're saying is 50% of those not fit users, you were able to convince to or expand their revenue into being a fit where you could serve them, and 50% you essentially lost. So it was net neutral.
Yeah, now the real numbers are probably closer to 75% we lost, but the 25% that we upgraded, we were able to not just double their price, but more like triple or quadruple
Smart.
the coming from them.
And support costs go down, you can provide higher touch, etc.
As 40% of our support volume was coming from the 10% of revenue, the bottom 10% of revenue. And so
I want to talk about your team and the support section of that here in a second. But so finish that story. You were at 1,100 customers. What are you down to today?
It'd be in that 600 range.
Fair enough. And then, I mean, you quoted earlier an ACV of between 50 and 100. That generally puts you somewhere around 2.5-ish in MRR. Is that generally accurate?
It's in the right zone.
Right zone. Okay. Have you broken 30 million in ARR yet? Okay, good. You think you'll break 50 this year?
TBD.
Come on, Raj. Give me some confidence, man. You still got 11 months. You think you'll do it?
I just got to say TBD.
All right. It would be damn good growth. If you're at 30 now and you go to 50, it'd be damn good growth, obviously. Take me back to the team. What's the total team size, and what percent of those folks are focused on support?
So, it's about 150 people, and, support can be broken up in a couple of different ways. But if you talk about, customer support itself, we're probably talking about 8 to 10 people. But then our support organization includes, what we call mobile engagement consultants. Consider them like, post-sales solutions consultants. But our model is a little bit different, right? These are practitioners. These are folks that have been in the shoes of the practitioner. Sometimes they come from our product management organization, and they're taking a proactive approach, with the people who are actually using the product, to go in there, look at what kind of campaigns are running and what kind of advice that we can give them. How are they analyzing the data, and how can they do their job better? Basically doing a good level of hand-holding to make sure that in this confusing mobile space where everybody's, feels like they're over their head, that they can make sense of these tools. Because while we think our tool is relatively simple because there's a self-service version, et cetera, available, sometimes it does take that extra level of hand-holding to maximize the full capabilities.
Sure. And you can afford it at this price point for what they're paying you. So, hey, we're running out of time here. Last few quick questions. Lifetime value. What do you assume it is on the cohort that is a good fit for you, your enterprise cohort?
So if you take an average customer at 50,000, it should be at least a 5 to 6 year lifespan. And I think we expect to see that. But what we're seeing is definitely, our upsells are awesome, right? A typical customer, a large enterprise customer, we may start with them at 50,000. The next year we're at 200,000. The next year we're at 500,000. So, we're well over 100% on net retention.
Yeah. So in terms of lifetime value dollars, I mean, you can fairly confidently say minimum is, 100, 200 grand pretty easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Last question here on economics before we wrap up with the famous 5. Payback period. How quickly do you like to get your money back?
We want to be in that 12-ish month range.
Got it. So it's fair to say you're spending maybe 50 up to 100 in some cases, K, to acquire the customer? Yeah. All right. Let's wrap up here, Raj, with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Leadership and Self-Deception really had an impact on the way I think about the world.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
Elon Musk, but prior to that, partly because I worked with Jobs, he was the guy that I took a lot of inspiration from. Number
3, besides your own, what's your favorite online tool for growing the business?
I really have to say it's Salesforce, just because of the number of different things you can use to bring together your world.
How many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Nowadays, since I hired a CEO to take over the harder work, I get like 7. It used to be closer to 5.
I'll have to have you back on and understand that story as well. I'm sure there's some learnings in there. But wrap us up here with your current situation. Are you married, single? Do you have kids?
I'm married. I've got a 3-year-old daughter, and it's a lot of fun with her. I get to spend a little more time with her these days, that's life right now.
And how old are you, Raj?
I am 42.
All right, last question. Take us back to your 20-year-old self. What do you wish you knew?
Oh man, I wish I knew that I can and should be more aggressive about everything in life.
That means he wishes he had 20 kids instead of just one right now. Just kidding. Be more aggressive about everything in life. You guys heard it here from Raj, founded Localytics back in 2009, helping you understand what your users are doing inside of the mobile apps you've built for them. He helps you customize those experience, increase stickiness of those applications, time and app, things like that. They've raised $68 million. They serve about 600 customers, paying a minimum of $50,000 ACVs, doing somewhere around 30 million bucks in ARR today. Super healthy economics, more than 80 or 90% logo retention and net negative retention in many cohorts he's serving. Payback period healthy at 12 months, spending about 50 to 100 grand to acquire those customers with our team of 150 folks. Raj, thank you so much for taking us to the top.
Thanks so much, Nathan.